Money Vikings, Money Viking Greg here. Welcome back. Thank you for joining. Please like and subscribe if you get a chance, if you get value out of our content. But without further ado, let's dive right into the topic today. It is Bitcoin 200,000, and is it too big to fail? So I want to go into that. I want to talk an overview of Bitcoin. And again, we come from the perspective of common people. I'm a common middle class guy building wealth. You know, no whales here, no tech titans, no insiders in any way. It's how I'm approaching Bitcoin as a middle class wealth builder. And the approach has worked very well so far. And I think there's a lot of upside as well. So I'm going to get into all that. And I'm also going to play a few clips, as you can see here, from Michael Saylor, who is best known as Bitcoin, aficionado, bull, his company MicroStrategy. The long story short is that it was a software company for many years, which it still is. But my understanding is he decided to turn all of their capital into buying Bitcoin. And that has worked out very well. And so actually trading that stock, the MicroStrategy stock, has been kind of a proxy for owning Bitcoin as well. But I do like the way, I want to play a few clips because he explains Bitcoin in really great ways, very, very straightforward. He puts it in the context of history, and we're going to get into all that. So without further ado, let's talk about, I'm going to talk first about my experience with Bitcoin. So I started investing in Bitcoin around 2017. I think it was around $7,000, $8,000 a coin at the time when I started dabbling in it. And I basically had a rule of thumb, which I've essentially kept to. It's no more than 1 to 5% of total net worth, total assets. That's because there's the realization out there that, yes, of course, Bitcoin is a volatile investment, but it seems to me it may get less volatile over time at some point. I don't think we're there yet. There's probably still more to go. But let's talk about the most recent moment here. So Michael Saylor talks about it, but basically with the election results, we now seem to have some signals that the federal government is going to sort of, I don't know if the word has become pro-Bitcoin, but maybe that's the word, but they're basically going to put a Securities and Exchange Commission chair in place that will create rules around Bitcoin and will support it. And that's in addition to all of the active exchange traded funds now that a layperson like me or a middle class wealth builder like me can buy into to have exposure to Bitcoin. So the bottom line, I think, takeaway with all this is that it's becoming very mainstream. And with that, though, I personally believe it's still a great time to buy. I think Bitcoin is probably in the near term going to settle around 150,000 a coin, maybe higher, depending on what goes on at the federal level. But I do now understand the long-term bull cases for $1 million plus a coin. So let's get into that. I have had the other thing that happened a few months ago was there was another halving event. And what that means is that basically there's only going to be 21 million Bitcoin ever created. And that simplicity is apparently the beauty of it. It's totally uncorruptible, and there can only ever be 21 million. It's totally different than what they call fiat currencies or the dollar or the yen or the yuan or whatever from China, where the government can print more dollars, right, to influence the value of it and the buying power of it. And the more that they print, the less value it obviously has. But let's watch a little bit of Michael Saylor, and then I'll go into some other specifics about why I think it's definitely headed over 150,000 in the short run per coin.
To that audacious $42 billion fundraising plan of yours. But first, there's a lot of regulation and regulatory aspects that are in focus with the Trump administration coming into play. SEC chairman, for example, a lot of expectations that Gary Gensler is going to step aside. And I realize Bitcoin itself is governed as a commodity, unlike other cryptocurrencies. But when you're talking about the ETFs and when you're talking about the cryptocurrency exchanges and when you're talking about companies like yours, MicroStrategy, which is publicly traded, it is SEC. So how important is that appointment going to be? And who would you like to see at the helm?
Well, I think whoever chairs the SEC has probably the most pivotal role in the entire digital assets industry. I think this is incredibly bullish for digital assets. It's very good for the crypto industry. We're going to see a lot more pro-Bitcoin policies. We're going to see a digital assets framework. We're going to see an end to the war on crypto. We're going to see a lot of pro-business policies. And I think that clearly the SEC will be a big part of it. So it's above my pay grade to have an opinion on who.
Okay, it's a little bit funny that he says above his pay grade. He's a billionaire for Bitcoin, but that's okay. I'm not sure who else would be above his pay grade. Maybe Elon Musk. I'm not sure. But it does seem that, again, I am taking, as a middle-class investor, I'm taking a level-headed approach. I'm going to cap at 1 to 5%, somewhere in there, of assets, and let that ride over the long run and hold on to that as a part of a very diversified portfolio. But I do see the value in this. So it seems to me that we have hit a point where Bitcoin is too big to fail, I think, in a lot of ways. And the reason I say that, there's a couple things. So people are definitely looking at it as gold. It's definitely that it has that whole vibe of gold, of preserving your wealth, preserving value, a place to put value, okay, in terms of human. And I guess what I would say is, gold has withstood the test of time, 5,000 years or whatever plus. And I would say, gold is just a shiny rock that comes out of the earth. So if gold has value to humans, why can't there be a cryptocurrency, I would argue, and something like Bitcoin, a digital asset? Humans have kept value in forms of everything over time. Shells, trinkets, baubles, dollars, of course. Most of our dollars that all of us are engaged with in our lives are now digital, basically. I think in a lot of ways, we have digital dollars. I don't use a lot of cash anymore, so that's kind of interesting. So one thing to keep in mind, I think this is interesting, there's one argument that gold's market cap right now is around 11 trillion. So if Bitcoin was to match that of gold, that would put each Bitcoin valued at around 400,000. That seems like a very logical, level-headed place for it to be, because it would then match that sort of value of gold. But I think it would definitely go up from there, because you can mine more gold over time. But when Bitcoin hits 21 million, no more can ever be mined. So let's look at this. So it seems very reasonable. And, the issue, I think, and Michael Saylor going a lot of this, governments are there to create order, manage the ups and downs of an economy. And, governments will run massive deficits due to a lot of things in the out years, due to demographics, for example. We have a rapidly aging world. That's going to cost a lot more money. And it's going to cost a lot more money for the government to keep society on track with that. And so that may devalue the dollar. And that might prop up things like Bitcoin. I personally think inflation is somewhat here to stay. High prices are somewhat here to stay. I think we're going to have more of an inflationary environment. I know it's come down. Prices have not come down, but inflation has come down to about 2.8%, 2.7%. But that still means that things are rising in cost over time. So as I said, there's 21 million Bitcoin that will ever be available. So it's a finite supply. I think that's the beauty of it. Very simple. 19.8 million are in existence today. And here's another interesting thing. Approximately 4 million of those have been lost forever. I don't know if you ever heard the story of the guy that lost the code to his cold storage of Bitcoin, and it got thrown out in some trash, and it got thrown into some municipal dump. And for a decade or so, or 7-8 years, he's been trying to lobby with the local government to go dig through the dump. And I don't think they'll let him do it. But essentially, that's 21% of the total Bitcoin has been lost forever. So there's clearly demand for something that can hold value in this world. So let's see what Mr. Saylor says in addition to all this.
If we don't go through 100K in November or December.
So then what's the biggest threat to it going lower, even if it doesn't get that low?
I think the biggest the biggest uncertainty in the industry was November 5th. And would you have a blue wave? Would you have a red wave? Or would you have a split Congress? And would you have any dispute about the future of crypto assets and Bitcoin? I think that was settled by the people very decidedly on November 5th. And I don't really see any threats.
A good thing when you're talking about a decentralized asset now being stockpiled by a centralized government?
Well, that's being sponsored by Senator Lummis from Wyoming, and she understands the value of the frontier. The United States was built by purchasing Manhattan. Then we purchased the Louisiana Territory. Then we purchased California and acquired Texas. And then we bought Alaska. The next great frontier is cyberspace. And the obvious thing to do is to own cyberspace, buy the future. And so I think it's a great idea. I think it will happen. And I think it's important to the United States because it cements the United States' control over the future world reserve capital network. Senator Lummis is...
So a lot to unpack there. Very interesting stuff. I would say check out more of Michael Saylor's talks. And again, I'm still going to always bring a level-headed approach. Maybe it's partly because of I'm in my middle age now, so I'm not, not my 20s and 30s where I might be more aggressive. I'm still going to keep, that certain percentage that I'm comfortable with, but I'm definitely all in and on believing that it's, that Bitcoin is something in the future. And like I said, Money Vikings have said this for now about 6-7 years. We have many articles at truewealth.moneyvikings.com about Bitcoin, analyzing it. We called it going to 75,000 when it did. And so, we're going to keep, I'm going to keep analyzing it with my own mind, going to listen to people like Michael Saylor and others and kind of look at how the world shifts and changes in terms of adopting this new asset class. So that's where I'm at. I hope this helps you. And again, please like and subscribe and share if you get value out of our videos. And enjoy Bitcoin, the what I call the Superman of cryptocurrencies. I got my Superman #1 all in right there. Ironically, should have a little Bitcoin symbol up there. All right, folks, take care and thanks for watching. Bye.